Okay.
Thank you for joining us. This is Our Revolution Washington Bernie Kratz Coalition vetting interview of Susan Soto Palmer. She is running for Yakima County Commission position number 3. Thank you for joining us today, Susan. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your district?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Susan Soto Palmer. I am in Yakima County and I am running for district number 3. And district number 3, I should have sent you guys a map, but district number 3 is going to cover little portions of Yakima County. They go into Terrace Heights, Moxie, and then further into the lower valley. Toppenish is not included in this in the preliminary election, nor is Toppenish. So it's almost everything east of 82. And then as you get further into Sunnyside, Granger, and Grandview, those areas are covered. So that's the area that I'm running in. So a little bit of urban and a lot of the agricultural areas of Yakima County.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. Rhonda likes to start off with a few questions, so I'll hand it over to her.
Hi. Yeah. So some of the things I ask is kind of like, what made you kind of run for this office? What got you to say, you know what, I need to be part of the change?
So I have been working in politics since 2013. I moved up to Yakima County from Texas in 2011, and I became politically engaged and involved in about 2012, 2013, when I really started paying attention during President Obama's last reelection. I became involved with the local party because the Democratic Party is our vehicle here in this area, and was appointed secretary. And in the following, and it was a midterm appointment, in the following year, at the end of 2014, so 2014 through 2016, I was the chair of the Yakima County Democrats. I am currently the state committee woman for the Yakima County Democrats. I'm also a PCO, gosh, the name is escaping me right now, but a precinct committee officer, and have been for 2 terms now. I was a national Bernie delegate to the Philadelphia convention in 2016. And I am currently also at the state level, the affirmative action co-chair for the state. So as I've been engaged with different campaigns and just, talking to people in my community, the common theme is people are hurting. We know that people are hurting. There's a lot of income inequality. There's a lot of issues that people keep getting told, we need to wait. We need to wait. We need to make our corporations stronger. They need more money. And so I'm running because our quality of life in Yakima is suffering. And nobody is addressing really the quality of life issues in Yakima. Business is being taken care of. Does that mean I'm anti-business? Absolutely not. Our agricultural businesses are very important to our community. And I want to continue to preserve and take care of our agricultural businesses. However, we also need to balance that with quality of life and how our community members are existing on a day-by-day basis. And so I believe it's important that somebody on our county commissioners, that's made up of 3 people, is also focused and bringing attention to quality of life. And so that's why I'm running, because Bernie said, you know what, the only way we're going to change things is if we get involved and run for office ourselves.
Well, thank you very much. And one of the most important, I think, offices that you realized that a while back is being a PCO. You really can start changing your neighborhood and doing that local. So thank you for that. That's great. So another piece that I hit on is I'm with an organization, Represent Us, and we work on a national level ultimately to pass the American Anti-Corruption Act, but we work local on up, and it's about bringing transparency and accountability, to politics, right?
Right.
Have you heard about this, or does it sound something that you could get behind ultimately in general?
I think I might have touched on some of it. I don't know for sure if I know exactly of the organization and its principles, but I will tell you that one of my platform issues is transparency, accountability, and access. And as an example, what I will say is our county commissioners in Yakima on June 11th held what's called a State of the County. This was held with the Greater Chamber of Commerce of Yakima. Um, the people that were invited to that were the business people of the Greater Chamber of Commerce. I happened to be signed up to an email, so I received notice of that. And being a candidate, I thought, well, I'm going to go and figure out what it is they're going to present to the Greater Chamber of Commerce. I've asked and have not received a response because the 2018 priorities and a state of the county has not been put up on the Yakima County Commissioner's website. Again, this presentation was given on June 11th. The Yakima Nation, the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima Nation were not involved or included in this discussion. And I've asked Sunnyside Mayor Julia Hart if she received an invitation to attend because she is part of the Yakima County. I've not met with or asked every city council member, but I did ask Ms. Hart, and she says she was not given or extended an invitation. So when these presentations are happening, they should be happening where it's a transparent meeting, where the public is invited, and that did not happen. Additionally, it was a luncheon, so I know that there's costs for luncheons, but it was a luncheon that was put on by the Greater Chamber of Commerce. However, if you were not a member, you paid $32 for lunch, and there were only 8 seats that were for walk-ins. So without being a member of the Greater Chamber of Commerce, I don't know what they would have done if it had been publicly announced and if people just wanted to walk in, not necessarily eat, but hear the presentation. This presentation to date has not been made public, has not, we have, I believe there was a lawsuit filed by one of the other candidates, and she will be asking for some publicity for a public event so that the public can have a say in what is happening. So those are some of my biggest issues in my campaign.
Oh, great. Really happy to hear that. Thank you. So part of it too is looking into kind of some election reform and making it more open to regular people running, right? So looking at like a ranked choice voting system. Have you heard about ranked choice voting, and what are your feelings about that?
I have heard of ranked choice voting, and while I cannot right now tell you all of the details, I will say that as a state committee woman for Washington State from Yakima County, that was one of the resolutions that I voted on, and I believe it was also implemented in our 2018 platform, which again had my vote.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, my little section is over right now. I'll go ahead and give it back over to Courtney. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you again. And we have a list that our group put together. We can slide right through them with pretty short answers, but if you feel like you need to say something, feel free to. And it's basically a list of services to some extent. I'm sorry. Oh, my daughter would like to say hello. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
We're taking the parenting shame out of politics.
Absolutely. It's time.
Yes.
Our children should be involved so they understand just how important this is.
And if this doesn't finish by when I'm older, then I'm going to keep on this.
Thank you. We're going to need you.
So it is a list of mostly services that we wonder if you think there should be a, it's a lot of these are, do you want to maintain public funding? Do you think it should be privatized? It should be a public option, a private partner, private public partnership. So that kind of nuanced thing. And so we start with healthcare, publicly funded, privately funded as it is.
Well, I believe that needs to be a universal healthcare, and I was and am an executive board member of Whole Washington that pushed for 1600. So that's my stance on that.
Excellent. That keeps it Easy. And the Postal Service.
It needs to be maintained the way it is. However, we do need to remove the onerous, I forget how it's, what it's called, but where we're having to fund so far into the future. As I understand from my union letter carriers, that is where the problem is. And so maintained with that removal, readjustment of the funding into the future.
Excellent. And schools.
Schools need to be maintained as public. However, we need to do a better job of funding our schools and removing some of this onerous testing that we have, and find other ways for our children to grow and learn and be educated with science-based data.
Thank you. I actually opt my child out of the test, so I thank you for mentioning that. And prisons, do you support private prisons?
No, I don't. I do not support that. As we can see, it's become a moneymaker for many, many areas, and I believe that's morally wrong. And it's also racist, in my opinion.
Excellent, thank you. And then the distribution and investment of Social Security.
Our Social Security, I am with Bernie on this, that we need to lift the cap and we need to maintain Social Security and have more funding in it. And if we lift the cap, like Bernie has said, I believe that we will be in a better place to make sure that our people can live in dignity and with respect and be able to afford living and the cost of living that continues to rise.
Excellent, thank you. Foster care.
The foster care system, I was a CASA guardian ad litem for 4 years here. It seems that we have a shortage of foster care parents, and I'm not sure exactly what all the criteria is, but I know we need to look at it. So I don't know what the answer is to foster care. I will say that it is stressed. I will say that this whole system for dependent and neglected children is stressed. And I would like to look at what solutions there are out there to be able to come up with a more adequate answer. But it is definitely a system that we need to look at because this is our future. Our children are our future. So I would definitely want to look and see what options are there, what is working in other areas. I was not prepared for the foster.
No. But so it's a flawed system, but you're not looking to privatize it.
No.
Okay, no, that's adequate. And also for our group, we much appreciate I need more information on that subject than a fluff answer. So telling us you need more information is acceptable, and it doesn't look bad.
Yeah, and just basically my stance on anything is that privatization is not always the answer. Are there some areas that could be privatized? It would depend. It's a case-by-case issue, and you'd have to delve into what would the what would be the positive and what would be the negative. And so those are also issues that would need to be looked at very carefully. As you know, you could have a general area where you think, okay, privatization might be good on this, but then you'd have to dig deeper for the details to see what are the costs, what are the effects. So it's really on a general basis, it's hard to say. I just know that privatization is not always the answer, and it's not necessarily in our best interest.
Right. I feel like I should amend how I introduced the list and have it say something like, do you think people should make a profit off of this system? So the next one would be childcare. Do you support publicly funded universal childcare like Bernie supports?
Yes.
Excellent. And then utilities, power, water, internet, cable, cell service, trash removal. Tacoma has a public system, utility system. Do you like those ideas?
I do like those ideas.
Excellent. And then do you want to maintain our public lands and natural resources as a public space?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Do you support a public bank, say a state bank?
Yes, I do. I supported Bob Hasagawa in his efforts back in, I think it was last year. So I was part of the group that was meeting with him whenever we could at state meetings on that.
Excellent. And then mass transit, buses, ferries, railways, maybe even airways. Would you support public fully? Right now in Tacoma, we have public buses, of course, but they are a private company contracted by the city. And so the employees don't have the benefits that they would have as a city employee. And then our rates go up and our services drop.
Right. I do support a public transportation. Absolutely.
Excellent. And then infrastructure, maintaining public infrastructure financing. Excellent. Military and its associated industrial complex.
That's when I need more information on. I don't, but I just off the top of my head, the military is way out of control with some of the privatization. So I would have to say that it needs to be public so that we can make sure that we are keeping tabs on what they're doing instead of private groups, such as in when they are called to protest and things like that. So
excellent. And then Veterans Administration. Do you want to privatize the Veterans Administration?
No, absolutely not. I think it needs to continue to be a public service, and I think we need to do better for our veterans.
Excellent. Do you support public scientific funding?
Yes.
Excellent. And then space exploration like NASA, not like Space Force.
Yes, absolutely. NASA should be better funded back as it was before. So, and I don't remember the exact dates, but I grew up, just amazed with NASA. I was in Texas, in Corpus Christi, Texas, so we were a lot closer to that. I never got to go, but yes.
Excellent. And then libraries. Are you a supporter of public libraries?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And then do you support community housing, publicly funded community housing for the least among us, for people who age out of their homes?
Yes.
There's a wide variety. Excellent. And then I think we covered this earlier, elections, publicly funded elections.
Yes.
Excellent. And then legal services, we know that our public defender's office is overburdened at this time, so it doesn't sound like an easy yes answer, but would, as an idea, do you support expanding legal services, say to divorces or conflict, like contract disputes? I think it's like something like 60% or more people who go to court don't have money to pay for legal assistance.
Right. That one is a complicated one. I came from Texas, where the attorneys in Texas, the private attorneys, had to take certain amount of pro bono cases to help the system. So I would definitely like to look into something of more public option to see because I'm a legal assistant. Cases are expensive and they take a lot of staff and attorney time. And so this is one where I'm an insider, so I know exactly the amount of resources it takes for a case. And so I would definitely want more, I'd want to look at all the options and how can we better provide services to everybody, because everybody should get services.
Excellent. And to have you in that discussion as an insider, you understand it far better than I do.
Yes.
And then first responders, do you want to maintain public police forces and firefighters?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. And in that, Tacoma is lucky enough to have a Medic One response team. It is a first responder public service, but most areas have strictly private ambulances, which can cost an arm and a leg knowing. So would you also include ambulances in that?
Yes, absolutely, I would. The cost, as a legal assistant, part of what I see is bills for our local ambulance, and they are astronomical. And so when you have people deciding, I'm not going to call an ambulance to get medical attention, and I'm going to wait on someone, or I'm going to rely on someone, that is not good for our quality of life. So
Excellent. Thank you. And then the last part that we like to discuss is it is at an idea stage. We haven't worked out how it'll be paid for or anything. So as an idea, we discussed something called the caregiver's basic income. So if you're caregiving for a child, say under the age of 8, or an aging and elderly family member or friend, someone with disabilities, where you're a primary caretaker, you should be able to do that and not juggle a job or jobs. And then also, it would also give credit to the caregiver's Social Security, because when you caregive currently, you just have a reduction in your retirement and savings. So as an idea, without any bones to it, how do you feel about that?
Actually, I think that is a wonderful idea, and I hope that we can bring it into fruition. I was a single mother of a child with ADHD and with little to no support. Sorry. So that is a pardon me. That is something that's dear to me. Additionally, my brother in Texas just passed away, and we just buried him, and he was 37 years old. And he did not have caregivers other than my parents, who also need caregivers. So this is an issue that is very important. Families should be able to have that care.
Thank you so much.
Pardon me.
And our sincere condolences in your recent loss. And it really moves me that this idea moves you so much. So thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, it's your time to cry. And this is the end of the list. So have a moment. And
thank you.
Wow. That was powerful. So my condolences. And let's hope that we can get some change in this system.
Absolutely.
My question would be, of course, for environmental issues. You're a fellow resident of Eastern Washington, and we all know how valuable water is. What are some of the issues that you have in your area and some of the solutions that you might be able to come up with?
Well, I know that currently we have issues regarding the preservation of our water and preserving for times of drought. And that's not necessarily something that has been worked out that I'm aware of. I know there was a Hearst decision. I haven't fully read it, unfortunately. But that is an issue that we need to be working together with, along with the Yakima Nation and other stakeholders, because I know this county is just not sure where to go with that. There's also contamination issues in our lower valley area from the dairy farms. So my suggestion is that we need to bring together folks that have the expertise and can communicate with people that are involved in the dairy farms and such, and with the Yakima Nation, and try to sit at the table and come up with some reasonable, sustainable solutions. What does that look like? As I said earlier, I came from Texas. In Texas, we were on drought restrictions much of my adult life. And what that meant for Texas was that we were only allowed to water our lawns on certain days of the week and such. And so people really need to stop and think about, does it need to get that bad in this area for us to start realizing that we have a problem? And so my solution would be to bring together experts, because I'm not a water expert, but to bring together water experts as well as stakeholders and figure out what is a sustainable solution that we can live with.
Thank you. And I live in Moses Lake, and our city council last year enacted a policy to restrict watering to the even days for the even numbers for the address. And so it's one step, but they also stated that the wells that we get our water from are actually lower than what they're supposed to be. So it's one step in the process, but something that we all need to be aware of, that water is one of our most precious resources. So thank you for fighting that fight. I wanted to add thank you to Ryan for watching. Ryan McAllister is in the audience watching with us, and he would like to ask you a question. He wants to know how you plan to be able to work with the heavily Republican constituents in the area, and what sort of solutions you can come up with as a commissioner to bridge the gaps.
So thank you, Ryan, for that question, and thank you for watching. I believe that when it comes down to it, regardless of party, what the issues are, what affect people. And so I think when you start including people in the conversation, when you are having meetings where the public can be a part of that conversation and part of the solution, I think that's how we're going to bridge a lot of these gaps. Are they always going to be happy with, choices? Maybe not, but it's going to start with conversations. So I've done that at city council, just going and testifying in city council, making friends with people that are on opposite sides. And we find a lot of times that we do have things in common, that we are actually on the same sides of issues. Maybe we don't necessarily think about them in the same way, but I think there's ways to bridge that, and that's what issues are affecting you and how can we together solve those issues that are a compromise for everybody. And I think that's how we get around that and work with each other.
Great answer, thank you. And I just got my ballot, my primary ballot, and I have a lot of homework to do. So if there's any resources in this area that you're aware of, I would love to get plugged into those sorts of things. So thank you for what you're doing. That's all I've got for now.
I would like to add on to that when you do start working with experts that, not that we're experts, but that we have some keen ideas on environmental impact and how to mitigate that, repair it, and prevent it in the future. And because it's a bit of a passion play for a couple of us. And we like to at least introduce you to the word permaculture. It's my personal passion. So thank you for that. And I like where you're going with the environmental aspects. You have a rural area. Does that include farmland, like orchards? Correct.
That's correct.
So then there's also
very big area.
Yeah, spray issues. So, okay, excellent. Rhonda?
Yeah, keep going. I was just so I was going to go to healthcare, but we know, with healthcare, where you stand. So in your community, so there are places in Washington State where fascism is rising.
Correct.
And then we also have ICE, out there. How is your community? How diverse is it? What are some of the main concerns when it comes to these issues there? And what are your ideas to help eradicate them?
So we, our communities in Yakima County are very, very concerned. Obviously, we have a high immigrant population because of our orchards and farming and warehouses and such. So it is a big concern here. One of the first things that I did right after the election of 2016 is I met with as many elected officials while I was chair of the Yakima County to try to help them understand that our community was going to, need them to assure and take steps to prevent any kind of hate crimes and so forth. So I met with the sheriff and the police chief and our mayor, Kathy Coffey, and Gina McCabe and Norm Johnson, our state representatives, and even Curtis King. And I implored them to start understanding that our communities are fearful. And, what has popped up in response is I know that there's a raid response team that is in our area. I know that the Commission of Hispanic Affairs has been working a lot in our area trying to do education. And also the Latino Civic Alliance has been, this year has started to really call out issues. So I know we have problems, and I think part of the what we wanted to do in city council, we did try to implement the inclusive policing ordinance, the 9 steps from the ACLU, and we met with resistance from our mayor, and we didn't have the votes on that, but we worked on that for a long time. And our thought was, if we sit down with community and educate them and bring, for example, our farmers or whoever represents them, and here in this area, it's Mike Gempler is one of the people that represents the association, have a conversation with people that may not understand where that fear is coming from, and try to do that education throughout the county. I think we've all seen that when you're just watching one news channel or you have one set of beliefs, that it's going to be hard to cross that. So what protections can we take? And I would be looking at, where can Yakima County say, we're not going to do this. We're not going to house detainees. We're not going to do these things. And I was just looking earlier at one of the cases, excuse me while I grab that information here, but where Judge Salvador Mendoza in the Ochoa case, Antonio Sanchez Ochoa, said that state and local law enforcement and other officials are presumed to be unqualified and unable to perform the functions of federal immigration law enforcement officers. And so I think that's very important that we watch this case and see how that is going to affect what we can do, especially as county commissioners, or even if I don't end up getting elected, continue to be an advocate in the community.
Wow. Definitely want to keep an eye on that. That's something that could be looked at and pushed else, all over. So
Correct.
wow.
I think this particular article is talking about the national implications of this case.
Nice. Thank you. I'm okay here. Anybody else? I know that we have a lot we usually go through, but I know that you're on a time crunch too, so I want to make sure that everybody gets their chunk. There's his hand up too. Huh?
I have a question. I feel like sometimes we think of areas of Washington as monoliths. So like there's coast and then there's east side of the mountains, but things vary quite a bit. I know in some areas of Eastern Washington, there's areas that don't want to allow cannabis grows because of smell. And then in other counties, east side or west side, there's differentiating levels of legality, like unincorporated county doesn't get pot stores, but the city does. What is your cannabis status in your area? And do you like it? Do you want to change it? That kind of thing.
Okay. So I actually did a lot of research on that. And the county currently is in a lawsuit with one of the businesses in the unincorporated area. And so, this is a big issue. Our society has been indoctrinated against marijuana for decades, before I was born and such. And so I know that it's a tough issue, especially for many people in my area. However, I would not support a ban, and the reasons are because economically, it's not a good idea for us to not to ban marijuana and cannabis. It's a legal business that's been recognized in our state, that's been voted on by our state. Additionally, the Liquor Cannabis Board is they regulate these businesses highly. And we also know from the research that's being done that is part of the sales goes into researching the effects of this. We know that youth are not accessing marijuana in quite the numbers that they were. The black market is also diminished. And so it's actually keeping people safer. We also know that marijuana has many medicinal purposes, and that's been shown in various outlets throughout the nation. So I would respectfully disagree with our current county commissioners that we need to ban these businesses. I think we need to continue to support the enforcement so far, and just we're benefiting from it, and it's safe, and our youth are not getting it. So why are we continuing to put ourselves in this position? So that's my stance on that.
Excellent. Thank you. Oz, did you want to jump in?
Yes, just quickly, observation. First, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Susan, I would like to compliment you. I've been through a lot of interviews, and you have the kind of character that shows humanity that we need in the political process these days. I think that politics itself has sterilized that empathetic part of society that we truly need in leadership positions. I noticed that you supported, or you offered that John Pavlovitz article on an open letter to those who still give a damn. And that's been going around quite a bit lately. And I appreciate the fact that you did that, because I think that so many of us can relate to that, from veterans who have served, who are dealing with suicide and homelessness and a barrage of so many different things, to something close to my heart, which is how we have mistreated and not supported the elderly in the nursing home system and taken care of our elderly in our society. And this is something that I think we desperately need. And candidates like you, I can't get behind enough. You, Amy Villela, and so many others out there that I just wanted to say I really appreciate it. I didn't have a question, but I do want to give you that support. And I hope other people give you that same kind of support, because you're exactly what we need in our government today. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Those words mean a lot. As I go throughout Yakima County and see my fellow human beings suffering, and not just Yakima County, but when I travel home to Texas and just anywhere, how we can continue to say that we're not going to care about our fellow man. I don't understand it. I've never understood it. And so you're right, we do need more people that care, that it's not just about the bottom line. Where there is a will, there's a way, is what my mom used to always say. And I think that we can find solutions, and we can find the resources if we just stop and think about how we're doing things and reallocate some of the resources. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate that. And I mean that.
Couldn't have said it better, Oz. Thank you. Courtney?
I'm still tearing up. I can wait.
Yeah, I would actually like, so you had a really good response for the medical marijuana and the recreational marijuana. What about hemp? I know that that's a kind of a big issue over here as well. And I would really like to see some hemp farms. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. As I've seen throughout, we're all watching Facebook and different ads and different solutions that are popping up, and hemp seems to be the way to go to solve a lot of even our green energy issues, right? So we need to be more careful about the products we're using, plastics and so forth, that are contaminating our earth. So absolutely, I would support that.
Do you know of any operations or people trying to be able to expand operations in the Yakima County area?
Not off the top of my head. I hope to hear and to connect with people on that, but currently no, not off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm going to keep my ear down to the grindstone too and see what we come up with. And I'd love to connect with you on stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Courtney, did you have something else before we I know that you're getting close to, your lunch is getting close to being over, Susan. So we'll let Courtney kind of handle the last questions here, and then we'll.
I think I'm set. Nothing is coming to the front of my mind quickly. I feel like we covered our big issues. An issue we didn't talk about is our state tax system, but I feel like as a county commissioner, we could maybe skip that. But if you have any words to, Brian has a finger up. So
renewable energies in Yakima County, since that's part of the wind turbines and the dams, and what sort of solutions do you see coming forth in renewables in your area?
Well, I know that there is I probably can't find it here quickly, but I know that there are some houses that were built out in Sela that are clean green houses. I want to say they're called Sela Vista Inns probably. And I know that for right now that particular home may be out of range for a lot of people, right? But I think when we start investing in more and more, and I would like to attract some of those businesses that not only are going to have healthier solutions for us, but are also going to be invested in our community. So I want businesses that are going to also feel part of the community and want to invest, but I'd like for them to also have some green and clean, sustainable business practices. But we know that those houses are out in Sela, and I think that as we move on, like everything else, they will become more affordable. Those green and clean solutions will become more affordable for people. We also have, I think, a Zilla Inn that's out near Zilla that are using solar power, and they are able to sell back their power to the power company. So I would like to work. I know there has to be a way where county commissioners can try to have conversations with those kinds of businesses and ask them to look at our area and help us become more sustainable.
Beautiful. Okay, I promise I'm done now.
All right, so now is the time to go ahead again and introduce yourself, the position you're running for, a little blurb that you want people to remember you by, how people can find you, and how they can help.
Okay, so once again, my name is Susan Soto Palmer. I am running for Yakima County Commissioner District number 3. I really want to work on quality of life issues that include preserving our businesses, but also expanding that to the quality of life of everyone in Yakima. I want to make sure that we are collaborating with the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima Nation and include all of the cities when we're making decisions. I also would want to be more transparent, more accountable, and more accessible to people. So we should be having meetings that include the public, not just on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock when most people are at work. So those are the issues that are really important to me: preserving our water. One of the things we did not talk about, but affordable housing and our homelessness. So that is an issue that is dear to me. Finding solutions for that. There are many solutions out there. I know we can come up with something that will work for Yakima County if we put the right people together. Also, substance abuse, that's an issue that goes hand in hand with homelessness. So trying to find solutions that we know are not criminal solutions or criminalizing people, but that are actually helping people, because that is a medical issue, in my opinion. The way you can help me is obviously any support you can send to me, either volunteering for my campaign if you're in the area, or sending a donation to me. And you can find my website at www.susansotopalmer.com. Also, if you have ideas, if there's things that I did not talk about and you think, hey, you should look at this, I'm always open to looking at things that will help better all of us. Just because I've said something today and maybe it doesn't align with you, shoot me an email. You can shoot me an email at electsusancc3@gmail.com. I will gladly take a look at that. Maybe I've not heard of it. Maybe I've not researched it enough, but part of what I do as a legal assistant is research and get deep down into the issues. And so I could always change my mind about something if more evidence and science-based evidence is presented to me. So again, my name is Susan Soto Palmer, and I'm running for Yakima County Commissioner District number 3. And I hope I earn your support and your vote.
Thank you so much. So go ahead and just hang on a second. We'll say goodbye to our live audience. Thank you guys again for joining in, and look out for more to come.